Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate folks coming out today, and I want to welcome you to the last of 4 meetings we're holding to accept comments on the draft environmental impact report for the Lower Klamath project. I'm Erin Ragazzi with the State Water Board's Division of Water Rights. And although we have a small room here, I need to speak into the microphone because we're webcasting today. So it's a reminder that everyone should speak into the microphone for 2 reasons. One, we want folks on the webcast to be able to hear what you have to say today, but also because we're recording this, and so any comments that folks provide are ones that we want to be able to respond to and get transcribed accurately. So please make sure that you use the microphone. I have a couple of logistics to go over. If we happen to be in an unfortunate situation of having the fire alarms go off while we're having this meeting, we would want to exit through the exit door nearest to you, go downstairs, and then we would convene at Cesar Chavez Park, and hopefully it will not be raining outside if that were to happen. As soon as we got the all clear, we would come back and reconvene here. So just make sure you follow one of the staff here, and we can make sure you get back in. If you need to use the restroom, you go out that door, go right or left. When you get down to the end of the hallway, turn left, and the restrooms will be right there. The purpose of today's meeting is mainly to solicit comments from folks regarding the Lower Klamath Project License Surrender Draft Environmental Impact Report. And so we're going to do a brief presentation, but then we're going to really dive into the actual comment period. First of all, I want to introduce other folks that are here with me today. So over to my left is Christine Gengel. She's with the State Water Board's Division of Water Rights. She's going to be our first presenter. We have Mariana Owie with the Office of Chief Counsel here at the State Water Board. And then to her right is Parker Thaler, also with the Division of Water Rights here at the State Water Board. And assisting us over there is Michelle Siebel, who will be monitoring the email account. So if folks are out there and they want to email in comments that we will put into the record, they can do that. They'll want to email those to wr401program@waterboards.ca.gov. I'm not expecting people to be madly writing that down. It's scrolling on the bottom of their webcast as well. So just so folks know. Want to point out a couple things. 2 handouts that you definitely want to grab if you just came in and you want to speak. You want to grab a speaker card. If you fill out the speaker card, you can hand it to Kristen or Michelle, and we'll get you in the queue to provide comments. The other important document is the Notice of Availability. The Notice of Availability has all the information about how to submit comments, as well as how to sign up for our email list so that you can receive future updates about this project. And with that, I'm going to go into ground rules. So if you happen to have an electronic device with you today, a cell phone, we don't do pagers really anymore, but please take a moment to silence your electronic devices so that they don't interfere with today's meeting. Also want to make sure that we respect all speakers and all points of view today. Again, we already said, please make sure you speak into the microphone. And we have a limited number of folks here today, so I don't think we're going to have a real problem with time limits, but we would want people to respect time limits and be aware of folks in the room. And if you don't want to speak today, you can provide written comments on a speaker card. Just don't check the box saying that you want to speak. Or alternatively, you can submit comments in writing. As I mentioned, the information on how to submit those comments is in the Notice of Availability, and those comments are due by noon on February 26th. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Gengel to kick off the presentation.
So I'm just going to start with a quick background about the project and then talk about the authorities related to hydroelectric project licensing. I'll talk a little bit about why we're here today and then walk us through the water quality certification process and then also the California Environmental Quality Act process. And then I'll turn it over to Parker for an overview of the draft environmental impact report. Here's the project area. The Klamath River Renewal Corporation, or the KRRC, has applied with the State Water Board to decommission and remove the facilities shown in red in the upper right-hand corner. In Oregon, that's J.C. Boyle, and in California, it's Copco 1 and 2 and Iron Gate. At the moment, the 4 facilities are owned by Pacificor, but they've applied with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to transfer ownership of those 4 facilities to the KRRC, and then the KRC has separately applied to remove the facilities. There's other facilities associated with the Klamath hydroelectric project, which is different from the Lower Klamath project. And those 4 facilities are Eastside and Westside, Keno in Oregon, and Fall Creek in California. And at this time, those would remain under Pacificor ownership. So when it comes to the authority over licensing hydroelectric projects, there's 2 main authorities. At the federal level, you have the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. And they're the federal agency with broad authority over all aspects of a hydropower project, whether it's continued operation, maintenance, or decommissioning. And they can really control all aspects of a project. At the state level, you have the State Water Resources Control Board, or the State Water Board. And they're the state agency with regulatory authority to certify whether or not a proposed project can meet water quality standards, and also to impose conditions. And in this case, it's through the water quality certification. And those conditions would help protect water quality as associated with the proposed project. So we're here today because the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, or again, the KRRC, have applied to the State Water Board for a water quality certification for the Lower Klamath project. And in order for the State Water Board to take action on that application, we first need to comply with CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. And in order to comply with CEQA, we've issued a draft environmental impact report, or EIR, and at the moment it's out for public review and comment, so that's why we're here today, is to collect public comment. So the water quality certification process was instigated when the KRRC submitted an application to the State Water Board for water quality certification in late 2016. And so we started drafting the conditions that we thought might help protect water quality. And we issued a draft water quality certification in June of 2018. And that public input period went from June 7th to July 23rd. And at this point in time, we're in the process of reviewing and considering all the comments we received regarding the draft water quality certification. And our next step would be to issue a final decision on that application for the certification for the Lower Klamath project. But before we do that, we have to take a look at CEQA. The California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, is a state policy that requires any agency to review and assess the potential impacts, environmental impacts associated with the proposed project, and to identify ways to avoid, minimize, or mitigate where feasible those impacts. So it also evaluates a range of alternatives to the project, and it involves agency and public involvement. So when we received the KRRC's application for water quality certification, we shortly thereafter issued a notice of preparation and held several public meetings to solicit public input in late. And that public comment period went from December of 2016 to beginning of February of 2017. So we reviewed those comments along with a lot of the other data and other issued stuff that was out there regarding the Lower Klamath project. And we released a scoping report, which is a compilation of all the comments we received during our notice preparation. And that was issued in April of 2017, and it's available on our website. So at this point, we've issued a draft environmental impact report, and we're in the middle of our public comment period, and that went from December 27th, and it goes until February 26th, like Aaron said. After that, we would respond to public comment and then take final action on the certification. So you can see how these 2 processes, although separate, can run concurrently, but because the CEQA process informs the water quality certification process, we can't take a final action on the water quality certification application until we finalize our environmental impact report. So that's kind of the culmination of all this, is a final environmental impact report and a final decision regarding the application for water quality certification. I think I'll turn it over to Parker to talk about the actual document.
So for the second half of today's presentation, I'll be discussing the draft environmental impact report, or draft EIR's content and organization. And you can see on this slide, the draft EIR was divided into 2 volumes. Volume 1 included information such as the executive summary, introduction, the KRC's proposed project, environmental settings, impacts, and mitigation measures, alternatives to the KRC's proposed project, and other requirements of CEQA. And Volume 2 were appendices. We had 23 total, and it contained information that helped support determinations in Volume 1. And so what I'll be doing is going through each of these sections, discussing a little bit more about how they're organized and structured. And starting with the executive summary, it includes a lot of useful information in our document, such as an overview of the KRC's proposed project, identification of areas of controversy, some details of our public involvement process, and our CEQA objectives. They're summarized on this slide, and these were the objectives that we used when we analyzed the KRC's proposed project, as well as alternatives to the proposed project as a whole. And the objectives in summary included improving long-term water quality conditions associated with the Lower Klamath project, advancing long-term restoration of natural fish populations in the Klamath Basin, restoring volitional or unaided anadromous fish passage, and reducing disease conditions for Klamath River salmonids. And I note here that the State Water Board's CEQA project objectives are different and do differ from the KRC's proposed project objective, which is to remove sufficient portions of the Lower Klamath project to create a free-flowing Klamath River and provide for volitional fish passage. One other useful item in the executive summary is table ES1. It's a little lengthy and located at the back of the executive summary, but it's a table that lists every single potential impact as well as impact determination for the proposed project and for alternatives to the proposed project. So it's a helpful tool if you're looking to hone in on a specific portion of the CEQA document. Moving on to section 1. Section 1 of our document, the introduction, had an overview of our CEQA document similar to what I'm providing today, as well as some details of where we got information for our document. And some of those are highlighted on this slide, and I'd like to go through them. The first being public comments on our notice of preparation. As Kristen and Aaron mentioned, in the CEQA process, we released a notice of preparation in December of 2016, and we held public meetings similar to these and collected over 1,300 public comments, all of which we reviewed and considered when we developed our draft EAR. From tribal consultation, you'll note that there are two different items up here. We had formal Assembly Bill 52 government-to-government tribal consultation with 3 Native American tribes, those being the Shasta Indian Nation, the Shasta Nation, and the Yurok tribe. And additionally, we had informal discussions with the Karuk and Tupa Valley tribe. We also used information from federal, local, and state entities, as well as a large body of scientific information and information provided by the KRRC, such as their application and additional information submittals, all of which those have been posted to our Lower Klamath Project webpage, and I'll have a link to that up at the end of the presentation. So the next section is the KRC's proposed project. And in summary, it's the removal of 4 facilities shown here on the slide, and details of the removal, such as the drawdown rate or restoration actions, are all included in section 2. And for our section 3, environmental settings, impacts, and mitigation measures, up on this slide is a list of each resource area that we analyzed in our document in relation to potential impacts from the proposed project, as well as alternatives. And to list a few, we had items such as water quality, aquatic resources, historical and tribal cultural resources, public services, utilities, traffic and transportation, and noise. And for each of these items, as we analyze them separately, we ordered them in 5 components, which are shown here. And those 5 components include an area of analysis, which is the physical limits or boundaries of the proposed project or project proposed actions effects to an environmental resource. And that can vary by resource, and I'll have examples of that up in the next few slides. We have environmental setting or baseline, which is a description of the current environmental setting or existing conditions of what essentially what it looks like before the action is taken. We have significance criteria, which is criteria used to compare actions to the baseline or existing conditions to determine the severity of a potential impact. We have our impact analysis approach, which is a description of how the analysis of the potential effect was undertaken for each environmental resource area. And then we had potential impacts and mitigation measures, which identifies potential impacts associated with project implementation. It analyzes the potential impact and describes any feasible mitigation for the impact that would be used to reduce significance. And so to run through what this looks like in the document, we have the water quality section being one of the core focuses of the State Water Board's process area of analysis up on the slide. And so each of those resource areas that I explained has those 5 components. And for water quality, our area of analysis began on the Klamath River just above J.C. Boyle, ran downriver through J.C. Boyle, Copco number 1, Copco number 2, and Iron Gate reservoirs. Went the entire 190 river miles downstream of Iron Gate to the Klamath River estuary, includes the Klamath River estuary and the Pacific nearshore environment. So in summary, it begins above J.C. Boyle and runs all the way downriver to the Pacific Ocean. And so in this instance, for the area of analysis for the water quality section, we looked at potential impacts associated with a proposed action a great deal away from where the action would be occurring. And for our environmental setting or baseline, as I said before, that is a description of existing conditions before the undertaking of an action. And so that can include information such as, what are the current water quality conditions and what's our understanding of water quality processes in the system. And so shown on this slide is a general reservoir stratification process that occurs in most reservoirs, most large reservoirs, and does for Iron Gate and Copco. Then for our significance criteria, which, as I stated before, was the criteria you use to compare a proposed action to the existing conditions to determine how significant that action is. And our impact analysis approach are both shown on this slide. And to summarize our significance criteria that we used for water quality, it's exceed or substantially contribute to an existing exceedance of a water quality standard, cause a change in water quality that would result in failure to meet an existing beneficial use of water or protect water quality, or result in a substantial adverse impact to human health or environmental receptors. And our impact analysis approach described items such as our definitions of short and long term for the purposes of the water quality section, and those definitions vary by different resource areas. We defined water quality parameters for items such as dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, turbidity, and we described models that we use to inform our impact analysis. And so up on this slide is a very summarized example of a potential impact and mitigation process or listing out of the water quality section. And I would note that some of these are quite lengthy, and so we've done our best to summarize up here. And to walk through this, a potential impact taken out of our document is a short and long-term alteration in water temperature due to conversion of a reservoir to a river. And our impact analysis looked at what is the current conditions in comparison to what would the conditions be if the project were implemented. And so looking at that modeled condition with current conditions or known data, we've determined that water temperatures below Iron Gate are anywhere between 4 to 18 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in the summer and fall with the dams in than with implementation of the proposed project. And water temperatures below Iron Gate are between 2 and 5 degrees cooler in the spring with the dams in than with implementation of the project. And then the analysis concludes that implementation of the project removes temperature impacts associated with the dams. And so for our significance determination, that was determined to be a beneficial impact in the hydroelectric reach, spanning the middle Klamath River down to the Salmon River. And then for the Salmon River down to the Pacific Ocean, that was found to be not a significant impact. And because no significance criteria were exceeded here, no mitigation was required for this particular impact. And so I've kind of gone through these a little bit, but to list them, the different determinations we can make in our document for an impact are listed on this slide, and they range from being beneficial to being significant and unavoidable with mitigation. And in the middle, you'll have no significant impact or no significant impact with mitigation. And we just wanted to note that analysis, as you saw in this example, your determinations can vary by region or time scale. And so in this example, we had 2 determinations because different portions of the river were affected differently. And so that's the caveat at the bottom of here. And so stepping out of the water quality section and going back to the entire section 3, all of the resource areas we analyzed are again listed here. And for items listed in purple are resource areas where at least one impact or potential impact was found to have a short and long-term beneficial effect associated with implementing the project. And for items listed in blue are areas where at least one impact in that resource area was found to have a long-term beneficial impact, but not a short-term. And to clarify, that's not to say for water quality in general that the project would have a beneficial impact. What this is instead showing is that at least one potential impact in the water quality section was found to be beneficial in the short and long term associated with implementation of the project. And then to move to the other spectrum, the significant and unavoidable. Shown on this slide in orange are resource areas where there was at least one potential impact that was found to be significant and unavoidable in the short term. And for items in green were resource areas where at least one impact was significant and unavoidable in the short and long term. And then for the blue, the one being flood hydrology, it was found to have at least one long-term significant and unavoidable impact, but no short-term. So to move on to section 4, section 4 includes the project alternatives or alternatives we analyzed separate from the KRC's proposed project. In the beginning of this section, we have a list of all of the alternatives we considered. Some were provided during public comments on the notice preparation, and others were examined from previous environmental documents. And all of those are kind of tabled and discussed of which ones were moved forward for further analysis, and those included a partial removal alternative, which in summary was removing enough of each facility to create a free-flowing river, but leaving some items like penstocks. A continued operations with fish passage alternative, which meant that the project would continue to operate under some capacity and some ownership with fish passage facilities. We had a 2-dam removal, which had Copco number 2 and J.C. Boyle remaining in place, but Iron Gate and Copco number 1 being removed. We had a 3-dam removal alternative, which removed all of the California facilities, but left J.C. Boyle in place. We analyzed the impacts of a no hatchery, and we also looked at a no project alternative. And so please submit, or in summary, comments are due by noon on February 26th. You can submit them via email and a hard copy address shown up on the slide. And as I said earlier, shown at the bottom of this slide is the Lower Klamath Project webpage that the State Water Board has. And we post a lot of really good information related to our process, such as this presentation, public comments, the draft EAR. So it's a really good resource to check out. And how to stay informed, we have a Lower Klamath Project email subscription list, and information on how to sign up in a web link is listed here. And I think this is one of the best ways to stay up to date, because anytime we take a large action like release of a draft EAR, everyone who's subscribed to this list gets an email notice letting them know that it's happened, and usually a link of where to go locate that document. And with that, I will turn it over to Aaron.
Thanks, Kristen and Parker. We're going to shift gears now for public comment period. I do want to make a couple of reminders because we've had people float in. I'm going to ask people to come up and use the microphone when they make their public comments so that people who are on the webcast can hear it. And also, we're recording this so that we can transcribe the comments and make sure that we reply to them as part of our response to comments process. To that end, I'm going to ask that when you come up, please state your name and spell it for the record. That would just make things a little bit easier on the person who has to transcribe the record later. And we do have some folks that want to speak first so that they can hit the road. It's a long drive. and not the greatest weather out there. And then I also wanted to say, I'm going to ask folks to limit their comments to 5 minutes at this time, just so everyone can go through. If someone wants to come up after that point, then they're welcome to do so. So again, speak and state your name. First person is going to be Thomas H. Joseph, followed by Marva Jones, followed by Samuel Cedillo, followed by Matt Cox, followed by Debbie Valgopi, and I apologize if I say anybody's name incorrectly. So come on up, and I'm going to sort of transition you so you can turn however you want to speak to whoever you want.
Thank you. My name is Thomas Joseph, first name Thomas, last name Joseph. And I'm here as a Hoopa tribal member on the Trinity River, which is the largest contributory to the Klamath. And I'm here to support all methods and measures to dam removal. This is the second presentation that I attended, and I support dam removal, and you guys have outlined the necessities of it and why we do need to move forward. But I also want to recognize that the Klamath River is a living entity, that she breathes, that she knows how to communicate and have relationship, and that she has a spirit. And all of your documentation has failed to recognize that. And the state of California has failed in their neglect of recognizing the relationship of Mother Earth and the land that they live on. And it has caused grave turmoil, not just here locally, with the destruction of our local rainforest and our rivers and our streams and our water quality and air quality, but it has caused tremendous travesties worldwide. And it's at the fault of us. It's at the fault of this state. It's at the fault of these citizens, and that we need to change that path, not just for the protection of the Klamath River. She's been locked up for a long time. We reflect our environment. California had a problem with locking up its citizens after it had a problem with locking up its rivers. We will always reflect our environment. So the more that we continue to abuse her and disrespect her, the more pain our communities will feel. And we know that people of color will probably be the primary bearers of those effects of climate change, but it's gonna affect all of us. And these dams need to come down, that we can start to recognize how we can rebuild this relationship, that we can start to understand and have a greater understanding on how we can live in a non-destructive manner. We need to not just do this for Northern California, but we need to set a precedence. We need to show the world and the citizens of California that things have to change. And I guarantee when we see the Klamath River run free, we will see the power of her restoration and the example that she'll give our communities to how to restore our communities back to livable standards, how to be in community with each other, how to be in relationship with each other. She's waiting to give us that example. So I urge you to move forward. I hope that these tactics of delay aren't continued. We were promised 2020, now we're promised 2021. The state has a long history of delay tactics. We need to move forward promptly, not just for the restoration of the Klamath River, but for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Marva Jones, followed by Samuel Cedillo. And if anybody came in and wants to speak today, please grab a speaker card from the back, fill it out, and hand it to Michelle.
Elahan Shihushi Marva Singutesna Jones. I'm Tawadeni, and I come here to speak on behalf of dam removal. It's our only choice. We know that we're killing the river right now with the disease that's going on there and the blue-green algae that's affecting the river. I mean, we can't even swim in the river, and it's affecting our fish runway, as we all know. And Oregon's already on board and has approved the petition to go forward. And I'm just here to support dam removal. And just like Thomas said, it's a direct link and of the healthiness of our health, and it's a direct link of our wellness. And so obviously we need to restore the river off the.
Thank you. And if you could state your name and then spell it, that would be great.
Hi, my name's Samuel Cedillo, and that's spelled SAMUEL SEDILLO. And I'm here representing Trout Unlimited. I work here in California as the Public Lands Coordinator, and the Klamath River is our organization's #1 priority. And ourselves, along with many of the sportsmen and women and guides that use the river, believe that dam removal is the key to restoring salmon and steelhead runs up along the Klamath. We believe that a collaborative plan is the key to addressing the concerns of those regarding utility and the concerns of those regarding the fish. We believe that any dam removal should follow the Clean Water Rule moving forward. And lastly, we really appreciate the State Water Board taking a hard look at dam removal to restoring the river. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you for having us here and having the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have Matt Cox, followed by Debbie Bacigalupi, followed by Ken Payne.
Thank you. My name is Matt Cox, MATTCOX. I'm the Communications Director for the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, and I'm speaking on their behalf. Klamath River Renewal Corporation is part of a cooperative effort to reestablish the natural vitality of the Klamath River to support all communities in the basin. KRRC's job is to take ownership of 4 PacifiCorp dams, then remove these dams, restore formerly inundated lands, and implement required mitigation measures in compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws. KRRC is seeking regulatory permits to accomplish this project, including water quality certification by the state of California. The DEIR is an impressive and thorough review of the potential benefits and impacts of removal of the Lower Klamath Project hydroelectric dams on the Klamath River. KRRC commends Water Board staff and your consultant for its work on this analysis, and we think there is quite a bit for community members and stakeholders to learn from it. The DEIR shows the proposed project to be environmentally superior compared to the 6 alternatives to the project that the Water Board analyzed in terms of both project benefits and negative impacts. The report shows that most potential impacts from the project are small and short-term and can be reduced with mitigation. It also shows many project effects are beneficial in the short and long term, which is an important finding for those who are interested in the long-term health of the Klamath River and the communities and ecosystems that depend on it. The DEIR shows the proposed project protects water quality by restoring the free-flowing condition of the river and ensures volitional fish passage, and that the project will be a boon to salmon and steelhead populations. Many of the species expected to recover following dam removal are tribal trust species that are important to the culture and health of some tribes on the Klamath River. The DEIR also shows an expected increase in recreational and commercial fishing industries. KRRC is pleased with these findings in the DEIR and looks forward to continued work with regulators and communities to finalize the EIR and other permits, and then implement the project, including mitigation measures, to enhance benefits and reduce adverse impacts. KRRC will be submitting written comments regarding this DEIR in the near future. We are encouraged that this DEIR brings KRRC one step closer to project approval.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Bacigalupi, Debbie Bacigalupi. And I'd like to start off by saying I've been to many meetings now over the decades, from when USGS was holding public comment meetings in the town of Wairika to some meetings here in this very room where we sat in a big circle with cooperating agencies, cooperating federalists, and it has been really maddening to just hear all the questions, the concerns, the if, well, maybe, perhaps. For the largest dam destruction project in worldwide history, it would seem to me that we should be certain. I've interviewed over the years, and not be using words like, well, maybe, it could. For example, with the sediment, there's over 20 million cubic yards of sediment. That's like, if you laid it out flat, it's like 12,500 miles halfway around the earth of pollutants that would wash out to sea. Over 60 plus years is the estimate. And even the EIR, the original EIR and EIS admit this. The original peer reviews admit this. In fact, they even stated, and I read these because I had to provide public comment, it's hours and hours of reading. We have spent our time, our energy, our own money traveling to different conference or different meetings throughout the state, and I'm sure we can go even beyond to Washington, D.C., which people have, to try and say, wait a minute, we're missing so many pieces in this big puzzle. So why are we on this agenda to destroy dams instead of get down to the truth? There are so many conflicting stories, even within the original peer reviews. And so my concern is that we're not using common sense-based solutions, evidence-based solutions. As an aside, I got my master's in evidence-based theory, and I can tell you I can use any kind of evidence for any kind of outcome I want. But you know, I believe that the people deserve the truth. And with this project, it is so huge and it's going to impact so many people. My request for, is that we slow down and we really, really look at all evidence, not just focused evidence. I have a couple of examples, and I'm glad somebody brought up climate change. Something that I really like to do is see and hear things for myself. That's why I'm here. I'm not from Sacramento. I'm from just below the Oregon border, just below the Klamath River. But I like to go to meetings and conferences all over so that I can hear for myself what's going on. I've flown over the Klamath. I've interviewed a bunch of different tribal members, including the Karuk, who have said off camera that if and when those dams come out, they fear a future of flooding again, which means in the past, before the dams were in, there was flooding. I've interviewed fish and game employees who work at the Iron Gate hatchery just last year. I've got all these things on camera and on video, and the fish and game wildlife employees who are waiting to retire. The only reason they're not saying anything is because they have a retirement pension waiting. They don't want to get fired. But what they said, so when I was asking them about the different fish runs, there is one fish run that is completely protected, so that has very few fish. It's got compared to the other fish runs. So the fish runs, if you haven't been to the fish hatchery, you should go and investigate it for yourself and talk to the employees who work there. So the fish and game employees who are waiting to retire but don't want to say anything because they don't want to get fired, because they don't want to miss out on their retirement, would tell you, if they think that you're not for dam removal, let me tell you that, the truth and what they see. These guys have worked at this hatchery. This is their career. So I asked them, okay, so there's this fish run that has tons of fish labeled Chinook. Actually, there's a couple. And then you see all these nets, and it says coho. And my question to him was, why are there so few coho? And he said, well, first of all, I said, why the netting? And he said, because these are fragile fish compared to the Chinook. So I said, if they're fragile fish, why is there so many fewer fish in this tank than there are in the Chinook tanks? And he said, because we are required to keep the fish count low. Why? And his answer was, because it's all about dam removal. So if we keep the fish count low of the coho, then we have a low number of returning fish, and therefore we can keep the number low and therefore say this is required. We need to get these dams destroyed because there's too few fish. Go interview, I don't mean to sound, I'm nervous. I don't mean to sound mean, but go interview them. Go interview them. In March of 2015, there's a Mary Nichols of California Air Resource Board. She testified in Washington, D.C. on a topic called carbon dioxide emission rules. And in the questioning, it was talking about greenhouse gases and is California meeting theirs? And she agreed with one of the congressmen that if we included the Klamath River, the hydroelectric energy, the clean, green, renewable energy dams that provide drought control, fire suppression, irrigation, recreation, and it's just a gorgeous river. I have spent over 20 years on that, on and around that river. She admitted that California right now would be meeting, if not exceeding, our greenhouse gas emissions goals if we included the Klamath and hydro in our renewable energy mix. So why are we destroying them? I just got back from the most recent United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change conference in Poland. I was in a panel discussion with Kathy Wollums, the Senior Vice President of and the Chief Sustainability Officer of Berkshire Hathaway, another Warren Buffett, just like Pacificor, another Warren Buffett company. And in the panel discussion question part, I asked her about the Klamath. And I corrected her on a statement, and this is a public, this was a public panel discussion, and I corrected her on a statement where she said that their customers across the board are paying lower rates. And I corrected her, and I said that is not true, because in the Klamath area, we are being charged, Pacificor, owned by Warren Buffett, we ratepayers are being charged for dam destruction, which is, to me, just disgusting. It's disgusting that there are over almost 80% of the voting population in Wairika voted to retain those dams, keep them. And this also happened in Southern Oregon in Klamath Falls. They voted overwhelmingly. People who live with and are impacted immediately by those dams voted overwhelmingly. We want to keep our clean, green, renewable energy. And then, you know, we haven't even looked at the truck and haul. So if we're going to go through with the largest dam destruction in worldwide history, wouldn't it make sense to see if there is even habitat suitable to sustain the coho salmon? Those studies have not been done. So that, to me, common sense-wise, seems like a very, very good first step in this whole thing. I look outside and, you know, I love it. I was born in Mount Shasta, but raised here in Sacramento. And one of my favorite nutritional stores is Elliott's. And I love Elliott's. It's got like the best food. I love my raw milk. I love my, you know, clean food. And it's so fun to see in that refrigerator blue-green algae from the Klamath as a health supplement for human beings. So, and that comes from the Klamath River. Lastly, I want to say that, you know, pulling up to the EPA building today in Sacramento, California, I was saddened to see across the street a bunch of tents and tarps of our homeless problem. And it would seem to me that we have bigger issues than in California than a project, a worldwide project that has been nothing but, in all these meetings, if you continue to go to them with the experts cannot answer the questions. They say maybe. They will use words like, well, perhaps if we take out the dams. Well, how much is it going to cost? Well, we're not sure. What are you going to do with the sediment? Well, we think. All these uncertain, not positive, not complete answers. But there are homeless people out there right now just across the street from this EPA, this government building. And it seems to me that cooperative federalists have more urgent life-saving matters than destroying dams that are in almost perfect condition, and that people question the political agenda behind it. And so These dams are, for those who don't live up there like we do, they are 24/7 reliable energy dams. They provide over 9 hours of flood control. If there's going to be a flood, people are given over 9 hours to get out of there. You take out those dams, and just like Jody Waddell said of the Karuk tribe, if those dams come out, we don't know if we'll be able to survive, because we've had floods in the past that have destroyed towns downriver from Iron Gate. And one more thing, sorry. Rex Kazalia is a rancher who's lived on the Klamath just below the Iron Gate Dam his entire life. That means before the Iron Gate Dam went in, which is where the hatchery is, which is where the Fish and Game employees would tell you this is nothing but a political agenda. Rex Kazalia remembers as a child growing up, walking across the river, and his feet didn't get wet. So, and this is many times throughout the years. So, if it's all about coho and giving them more habitat to swim upstream, before the dams were in, the coho would need wings to fly upstream in certain years. So is this really about protecting the coho? Because let me tell you, they wouldn't make it upstream. Or is this another agenda? Because for so much uncertainty, it seems like this is an agenda. It's not based on science. It's not based on fact. It's based on feelings. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. We have Ken Payne, followed by Rick Fair. And Ken, if you could state your name and then spell it for the record, that would be great.
Yes, Ken Payne, Kenpayne. Guess it's an understatement to say that's a tough act to follow, and I'm sort of speechless after hearing from Ms. Boccigalupi. I used to work in this building on the 11th floor for the Department of Toxic Substances Control. And at that time, I was working in resource recovery. Since that time, I'd worked in permitting and even before that in site mitigation. But we had a process for everything. There was a process for permitting. There was a process for recycling hazardous waste. There's a process for site cleanup, several different processes for site cleanup. But it's my understanding that the process for this EIR and for this project has not been followed. First of all, it's my understanding that in order for this project to go forward, FERC has to agree to transfer the license to KRRC, which it hasn't done. FERC also would have to decide to remove the dams, which it hasn't done. So the Water Board is really analyzing an incomplete iterative process. If FERC decides to remove the dams, then there would have to be a new environmental impact statement done. The last one was done in 2012, and it would have to be updated. Another part of my understanding is that since the 2012 environmental impact statement was never acted upon by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, there was never a record of decision, then the CEQA process really cannot be based on that environmental impact study. Since it was never really adopted, it's really not, in a sense, not legalized because there was no record of decision. Anyhow, that's my exhortation to the board today, that there's a process to follow for every project, for every permit, for every site cleanup, and for everything else, for every recyclable material, there's a process to follow. And so the process has to be followed, otherwise you can never get to the end. So I think it's a little bit cart before the horse right now, and things should probably hold off until everything the rest of the process catches up. Thanks very much.
Before attending this meeting, I was attending a
1 second, Rick, could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
FEHR, F-E-H-E-R. The last speakers seemed to be supportive of the process, and I can find faults in the process, and I respect that the process is. Process seems to be that the public can comment in CEQA proceedings. The public can comment. The answers are required to be provided, but I want to. And can I ask a question of Parker, because he's been involved in this for a long time? What was it accurate that FERC was not a party to the agreement?
So we're not responding to comments today, so it's fine for you to ask.
So the process wins then, I guess. So if the process wins, I will just say something supportive of dam removal of the river and, you know, sort of the long view, the long-term vision. Created some big concrete obstructions, river, and people whom I know, and brother who's in the river, they're reporting that along with his observations, speaking with Fish and Wildlife, people counting fish, the fish runs are in trouble, and it's critical. And that means that I agree with Thomas Joseph, first speaker, that you know, each delay that occurs, though there's a process that must be followed, that seems to be a fallback position when wanted to do something like build a freeway or something in the 1950s. Of course, that's going backward in time. We're not there. We have a completely different set of procedures. It's very much different and better now. But even today, if there's an emergency like after, let's say after Loma Prieta earthquake, it was thought that certain freeways and needed to be for people to move. Well, this needs to be restored on an emergency basis for fish to be able to come upstream to their native spawning grounds. And with fish populations declining year after year, and over the long term, there may be some variation, but it's not a happy situation for people who possibility that the river can be restored at Elwha project in Oregon, Washington State, excuse me. The Elwha removal was, reports that I've read, quite successful in the, for instance, where I anticipated writing something. I'm usually better at doing that, submitting comments in writing, and I anticipate I will. Details and procedural issues, and I hope you don't get drowned in procedural issues while forward with the agreement.
Thank you. That was the last comment card I have. Are there any other people who want to comment today? I do want to say for the record that we do intend to respond to all of the comments that we had here today that are related to this project. So even your question will be something that will be responded to in the record. Folks who just came in the back of the room, are you planning to speak today? Okay. Well, in that case, happy travels to everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. And if you have questions or comments that you want to talk with the water board folks about, you're welcome to come up and speak with any of us. Thank you.
So we're back for part 2, and we have a few more speakers. And so our next speaker is Jolene Mukovi. And just as our ground rules, if you could please state and spell your last name for the record, and then provide your comment. Thank you. Yes, right here. You want to move the podium, feel free.
We good? Okay. Ayakui, Naknau Jolene McCovey, Napulak La Winchucks, Shregon Mitwa Mechuk. Hello, my name is Jolene McCovey. I'm a Yurok woman from the village of Shregon. My last name is spelled Mccovey. So the Yurok people have lived along the Klamath River since time immemorial. It is an integral part of our culture, our spirituality, and our food source. I'm so thankful for all of the things that this river has provided for my people since time beginning. Well, that's bad. But I'm also aware and I've observed the detrimental impacts of the dams. Our water flows are too low, the river is too warm. This allows algae and disease to flourish, which is making our fish sick. It is killing them. Our traditional spawning grounds are inaccessible, right? So these are very, very negative impacts. Traditional knowledge and cultural wisdom tell us that in order for our river to be healthy once again, it needs to be restored into its original being, the form that it was before these dams were imposed, right? In order to do that, the dams need to come down. This is our belief. The scientific studies that have been performed and conducted support Yurok belief that dam removal is the most efficient and best way to restore a healthy river. By removing these dams, our water flows will be stronger, the water will be colder, disease will be flushed, algae will not grow as easily, our fish will be healthier, they will be stronger, their spawning grounds will be accessible once again, our spring coho salmon will return. This will feed our people, it will nourish our spirituality, it'll support our culture. This is immensely important to me. This is important for my children, this is important for my children's children. Fighting for this is important for all those who came before and fought for me to be in this place to speak today. I support dam removal. I support being a good steward of the land. And I support Yurok people reclaiming what is ours. Wakla.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Virginia Hedrick McCovey. Oh, sorry. Oh, Virginia Hedrick, sorry.
Ayakui, Nakna, Virginia Hedrick, Shregon, Mewamechek, Nakpulak Law, Napesech, Richard Myers, Nachek, Deborah Myers. I want to thank my niece for her words, sharing about the importance and the cultural significance of the Klamath River. I live here in the Sacramento Valley, and I have for over a decade. I'm raising 5 children here. I was born and raised on the Yurok Reservation. I'm the youngest of 10. Everyone else lives back home within the Klamath Basin and on an ancestral territory. And what I've learned as a Sacramento resident is that all of these things are connected, right? So for our Sacramento River to be healthy, water is diverted from the Trinity River. The Trinity River is a major tributary to the Klamath River. So if the Klamath River is not doing well, the Sacramento River won't do well. And as Indigenous people, we've long understood the connection of water and life and forest and trees. And, you know, right now we hear stories and we know about, you know, cap and trade and exchanging one health for another health. And I think when we talk about Klamath dam removal, we have to talk about it in that scope, that it's not just everyone downriver from those dams. The rivers and the water basins are so widely connected that here in the Sacramento Valley and the rest of California, we have to think about those impacts to who we are. And, you know, I always encourage wherever people are to think about where the water is coming from that you're drinking. If you're buying a bottle of water from the store, where was it bottled? Is it tap water? Is it spring water? Who's losing for you to be able to have that bottle of water? You go into a restaurant here in Sacramento, I talk to Sacramento residents here and they don't know that Trinity River water is diverted to the Sacramento River. They don't even know where the headwaters of the Sacramento River is, or the Feather River. So my children are also Maidu, and they're from the headwaters of the Feather River, and people don't know that. They don't know that the Feather River is a tributary to our basin here, or what the impacts of those dams are into this valley. I spent a number of years living in Los Angeles, and well understand that the people of the Owens Valley are giving up for the Los Angeles water. For that dust bowl that's created in the Owens Valley is so that Los Angeles can have water. And I know in this scope of it, it seems like it doesn't make sense why we're talking about this, but as Indian people, we well understand that. In my family, we have a story that my namesake, Queen James, has shared with us, my great-great-aunt, that there was a time where people were polluting the river, and we had a lot of illegal dumps happening, and they were flowing into the river, and the river was full of trash. And she went down to the river, and the river spirit came out of the water and spoke to her and warned her that if you keep treating the river this way, and you have me damned in 7 places, if you keep treating the river this way, I will go, and so will the people. And I think for many people, we have thought that meant Yurok people, that Yurok people would go. But what I want to tell the people in this room and people who are listening is that it's not a literal interpretation. It's all people. Human life will go without water. We will all go. And I think, you know, we're having these large political discussions at the national level about global warming and impacts to the environment, and we have an opportunity in California to do the right thing. We have an opportunity to engage in one of the largest dam removals to restore health, not only for Indian people, but for all people, upstream and downstream, that these kind of upstream changes have the opportunity to make widespread impact. Many people don't care if we have fish to eat. They don't care about indigenous people on the Klamath River. I just heard public comment around a cannabis grow on the Klamath River and people calling it their ancestral territory and saying that they've been there since 1973. People don't care. That's something I've understood, that people don't always care about indigenous people and our rights, but you should care about yourself. We should care about who we are and the children that you're raising and the water that they might have access to or not have access to. I took my child recently on a field trip to the Nimbus Dam here. We talked about the life cycle of a fish, and they talked about, you know, the spawning grounds, and we watched them do this man-made spawning in front of them. But what they didn't talk about is why it's occurred this way, or the 600 miles of spawning ground in the Folsom area in the basin that are no longer accessible to fish, why we have a fish hatchery, why we have manipulated our planet in this gross, gross way, and the miseducation to our youth and our young people, and have to pull my son aside and say, this is what's happening here. This is a man-made interplay because they built a dam and cut off spawning ground to fish who have been here long before us. We have a fish in our river, the sturgeon, who's prehistoric, predates the human as we know it today, that has dates back to an earlier time when spirits walked among us. So who we think we are in this small frame right now when we talk about Klamath Dam removal, and many of you are showing up to a job and, you know, you're a policy analyst and you have the impact of one thing, and today when we ask you that we want to give comment, I want to appreciate and respect that you turn these back on, that you made time for this space, that that's important, and that you as an individual play a role in this, that you're hearing a story today, and what our old Indian people tell us is stories have power. So when you hear this story, you have to do something about it. You have a personal responsibility. And so I want to appreciate that you took that personal responsibility, you heard our words, you put it back on. For this reporter here, who is a storyteller in his own right, in a way that Indian people have been doing since the beginning of time, that's his responsibility, is to share these stories and to communicate with people a way in which we live and behave and caretake this land, that we all as humans have that responsibility. And it's not about who gets what and who needs water and who needs food. We all need it. It's our responsibility to caretake this world. It's our responsibility to caretake the Klamath River, even if you live 6 hours away, even if you may not realize the impact it has to you and to the people who come after you and the generations that you'll never meet and that we'll never see. The impacts the decisions we make today will have for generations to come. In 2002, we had a mass fish kill on the Klamath River. At the time, my grandmother was in her late 70s, early 80s. And from our porch, we could smell death. A smell I hope none of you in this room ever have to smell or fear or know what that feels like, to smell death in your home. And she was immediately triggered back to this time. Is this mean the river's going? where we as people, as humans, not as Yurok people exactly, but as humans, will this world as we know it, is it changing? We didn't know about gill rot the day we saw these fish washing up on our shore. We didn't know what it was caused. We didn't know that it was water flow right away. We didn't know all the scientific things that would come out of it, or that our scientists at the Yurok tribe and Kaduk tribe and Hupa tribes, all the science that would come out of it. My grandma didn't know that at the time, but she knew something was wrong, and that this was one of the most horrific things she had seen. And let me tell you, she went to boarding school. She moved over 13 hours from her home and went to boarding school, and yet this fish kill was one of the most horrific things she had seen. It's not about our personal impact, what it means to us. It's about a global impact. It's about the impact to this people and the world. And we have to, as stewards of this land, whether you choose to be or not, you're a steward of this land. We have to do the right thing in this case. We have to. And I know there was people here earlier that supported keeping the dams up and maintaining the dams, and maybe their families have livelihoods based on water that's held on the upper basin. We know that the federal government removed people to the upper Klamath Basin, and they have farms there, and they feel like they have that trust responsibility. And again, I just want to say it's not about that. It's not about the politics. It's not about who wins and who loses. It's about us as human people being good stewards of this land. And so again, I just want to thank you for reopening this, for taking that time, for hearing my story, for hearing the story that came before me, the stories that come after me, for the many people in this room who we don't see who are here with us. Well, the old ones who wish they could be here and that will watch this dam removal. That's what's important. When we talk about Indian people, a lot of us think about 500 years ago. In California, it's recent memory. It wasn't 500 years ago for us. California became a state in 1852. It's recent memory for us. My grandmother's mom, so my great-grandmother was born in a time when non-Indian people first came. And I'm taking a lot of time because I know there's not a huge line. That's recent memory, and I'm young. I'm in my 30s, I'm young, and I'm telling you about my great-grandmother. It's recent memory. And I'm hoping that my children, who span the ages from 18 to 2, will live to see a time where the Klamath dams are gone, and that their children will only hear about these things in story. And the people in the Sacramento Valley and upriver from us and downriver, that's how we as Yurok people orient ourselves to the world, that we'll all feel the positive impact from that. And that the people who are now supporting, maintaining the dams will also benefit from that. That's our role in this world as world keepers and world makers and balancing of the world. We're jump dance people, we're world renewal people. We don't just pray for our world, we pray for the whole world. Even those that are opposing this, even those that want the dams to stay up, we're praying for them. We're praying for their people. We're praying for them as well. It doesn't have to be a battle at odds. We all should be working on this together. So again, walk cloud, thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Melissa Eidmar.
Hi, Queen. Now Melissa Eidman. My last name is spelled Eidman. I'm here to talk really briefly. I think that both Virginia and Jolene gave excellent stories here for you to hear. I'm coming from an urban Indian perspective. I was born and raised here in Sacramento, but my home has always been on my reservation. My mom took me home always. We always played in the river. That place is so special to my heart. Our family has had ties to this river for generations that go longer than my memory go. And the salmon have been a primary source of food for many of my family members. And I just wanted to say really briefly that these dams have caused so much harm and disease for so long. And it's time that they're removed so that both our people and our river can heal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, so I think we'll go on pause again. Thank you.